my name is Gary Faessler. Welcome once again to Chefs About Town, the show for people who really love good food. On Chefs About Town, we focus on the very best foods and wines of British Columbia, as well as highlighting our top chefs and restaurateurs in this province. My guest today is certainly no exception. He's the president of the British Columbia Chefs Association, as well as owner and chef of Belle Auberge, a beautiful restaurant in Ladner. Now, before I bring Bruno into the kitchen, I had an opportunity to chat with him at his house and farm in Richmond, BC. Let's take a look at that day. A lovely wine.
Yeah,
Gallagher Brothers.
I hope there's more where that came from.
Yeah, me too. So Bruno, tell me, you came to this country as a young man in your 20s from Switzerland, just finishing your apprenticeship in cooking. Bring us up to date.
I was about 20 and I worked at the Queen Elizabeth in Montreal. I was executive chef at age 25 of a hotel with about 35 employees.
At 25? You had 35 employees?
Yes.
Wow.
I was the youngest, I think, of the whole crew.
I think so.
Then my largest job was food and beverage manager for CP Air, which entailed about 4 kitchens around the world. And
top job.
Probably the best chef's job in this country.
Amazing.
In 1980, I bought my own restaurant, and in 1984, I moved into the restaurant fully, without the airline at that stage, and now I had the restaurant.
As well as you bought
years.
the farm here?
We bought this farm, actually. My wife bought this farm. Behind every man, there has to be a woman. We bought the farm in about 1981, and we built the house in about 1983. But before we even built the house, we had the sheep. We started off with the sheep already before even the house was built, because we wanted to have a sheep farm.
Well, you're one of the few people in Vancouver who have who are in a very unique position where you have your own farm, one of the best restaurants in British Columbia. You grow your own herbs, sheep, you have your own chickens. That is great. Actually,
it's kind of a good feeling to see that you have sheep that you grow from day one,
right,
when they're born. Actually, you are even attending when they're born, and then you raise them, and then eventually you cook them for the pleasure of some customers.
Right.
And somehow there is some particular care needed to prepare that kind of meat, because there was a lot of care and love going into raising it. And it would be a shame to now just throw it in the oven and char it instead of making something to perfection. And I think that helps me, and it makes me proud to be able to produce such a product.
Well, I don't think maybe a lot of our viewers may not appreciate the fact that a lot of restaurants receive their food that comes into their kitchens in boxes and cans and such, whereas you feel, as I do, that cooking starts here at the farm or at the market, and it's important to get to know your producer, if you don't raise your own animals and vegetables and herbs, to get to know your own producers. And
or if
ingredients are important.
If we look back at the last 5 or 10 years, but particularly the last 5 years, including your show, it is kind of bringing us back to nature. First it was cuisine moderne, cuisine nouvelle,
cuisine.
which really wasn't nothing. It was just going back to where we should have been to begin with.
But we had to go through this evolution.
But we went through this, and now, again, I think we are where we should be. We are thinking of the product the way it should be. We're very concerned about what happened to the product before we get it.
Yes.
And I think maybe if more chefs would have their own farm like I do, maybe some better food would come out of it. You know, it's the today's trend is go back to the farm, pick up your stuff daily, get your vegetables fresh, figure out who supplies it, who makes it, what do they use to spray it with, in order for you to enjoy it without any bad afterthoughts.
But I want to emphasize as well, this is not just, as you said, a fashion for fashion's sake or a fad. This is really, really important because the ingredients that we use in our cooking will give us the best result in our end dish. The very best ingredients will give us the very best end result.
I would say it's almost called getting back to where we should have been a long time ago.
Getting back to basics?
Well, not only basics. I think we have advanced to basics, but we have more knowledge now than we ever had as to what food does to us.
Yes.
I mean, look at how long we've been eating just to nourish ourselves.
Yes.
Now we start to eat
to nurture ourselves,
as well as our health.
Yes.
And to look after ourselves.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. If you use bad fuel, you will have a bad engine.
I think you're right.
You use good fuel, you'll have a good engine, and I think that is the same as...
Here. Listen, we're going to go...
To a good Canadian product.
To a good Canadian product. We're going to go
to
into...
lamb.
To lamb, to good food. We're going to go back to my studio in Vancouver. We're going to prepare some lamb, and we'll see you there in Vancouver.
There we go.
I would now like to welcome Bruno Marti. Welcome, Bruno.
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's wonderful for you to be here. So listen, that was a great visit out at your farm, seeing your lamb, and we're going to prepare some lamb today.
You're going to prepare some lamb today, and for a change, instead of using rack lamb or lamb chops, we're going to use more of the stewing type of lamb, which is shoulder, neck, breast. And we're making a simple dish, again, possibly even a better tasting dish than one of the brine cuts.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Because these products like the shoulder, the breast, usually have more flavor. Right. They're more juicy.
Why is that?
I think it's just because the animal it's more nervy. It has more muscles in it because the loin and the tenderloins, these are all not very heavily used muscles. While the front, imagine the shoulder, you know, he's walking and his neck is moving, so he has more muscles, and muscles have more taste.
Oh, I see.
But because they are muscular, also it needs more cooking time.
Okay.
It's not something you can just throw on a barbecue off and on it goes. You need to cook it and you need to make it tender for human consumption.
Well, I think it's a great idea to be preparing one of these different cuts of meat, because I think that we've done on this show before, we've done the rack of lamb and the lamb chops,
it's
lamb
the
loin.
most common. You know,
absolutely.
So I think also we keep saying stew, you know, the word stew or as the German would call it, Eintopf, is not a bad word, but we have given it a bad connotation in the past, because anything that we didn't know what to do with, we just put it in a pot and we cooked it. Maybe the fault of us cooks too. But if this is a way of getting back to where we should be, I would like to do this with the beautiful lamb stew today.
Where do we begin?
We begin with putting this frying pan here. As you see, I use quite a heavy copper pan, and heavy meaning it retains the heat, because again here we want to actually roast something, and in order to roast something you need a little heavy pan.
I see.
And here we have the lamb, which is, you know, quite fatty, you know, from the shoulder, and we use a little garlic, little fresh herbs from the garden,
some sage,
onion, potatoes. I chose a little of fennel, and the reason why I chose fennel is because lamb usually has a strong flavor.
Right.
So fennel is also quite strong, and fennel needs quite a while to cook. So we're going to put the fennel together with the lamb, whereas some of the rest of the vegetables we're actually going to put only at the end on top of it. So the stew that normally looks like a stew will get the beautiful appearance, and that will make a little difference.
Oh, marvelous.
Now a stew is probably much more work than just plain lamb chops or even a rack of lamb.
Yeah,
but
it's different though.
It pays off
in the
by
end.
the time when you eat.
You
it.
bet.
Now, I'm using a little butter here, but oil actually would be just as fine.
I want to mention too, you said that the lamb was fatty, but for a stew we want a little bit of fat too, and that also adds flavor to the meat.
Oh, absolutely. And also, I mean, once it's cooked, you can actually take the fat off if you so please.
Yeah.
Now this is for about 6 people. Naturally, people which I consider hungry, you know, and, but then you wouldn't want to have guests who go home hungry either. So.
No, no, not at all.
Even when you buy stew meat, it's always good to go through it a little bit and see if there is any heavy sinew which you really don't want anyway, and cut it out a little bit. But if you buy a shoulder, you can tell your butcher that he should cut it into, you know, about 1 ounce cubes.
You should mention too, while we're letting this brown a little bit, we're just sautéing this. I'm sure some of our viewers are wondering about this magnificent gold medal that you're wearing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, this is the gold medal of the Culinary Olympics in 1984, where 4 British Columbians and 1 Manitoban represented this country, and we became the world champion over about 32 countries.
Magnificent.
And this is something that kind of a highlight of a professional career. Not that I've learned everything in my life, there's a lot to be learned about cooking, but it is something that I'm proud of, and I think every Canadian should be proud of, that we were able to
and this was
achieve.
in Frankfurt, Germany?
In Frankfurt, Germany in 1984. Every Olympic year, every 4 years, there is a large competition, and it's going to be held again in 1992, where at this stage we're not really sure who is going to represent the country. We went to Singapore in April.
Well, there were 6 of you?
6 of us, and we made the silver medal. Now a team from the East is going to Luxembourg.
Right.
And it all depends on what their achievement is before the Canadian Federation determines who is going to Frankfurt. But one thing's for sure, that BC will have a team, and we will go to Frankfurt no matter what.
Well,
and
I think that's fantastic. And I'm glad that you mentioned too that as much as you know, and you're certainly one of the finest chefs internationally, and you've proven that as you said, you're still learning, and there's still always something to learn.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what cooking or any art or any craft is all about, isn't it? You're continually learning. In
the food business, you know, I think you have to live 5 lives before you could even say, I think I know a lot. And one of the problems I think we have in getting new young cooks into this profession is one of these.
Yes.
They can't just go to school for 3 years and say, now I'm a professional, I know it all.
Yes.
And that sometimes deters young people, because it may take 10 years before they know the basics of general cooking.
Absolutely,
and in order to be competitive, like on an international competition, you need 25 years. But as you can see, with my age, I've passed this stage.
Well, I want to mention too, though, you don't need 10 years of formal chef training to do any of the dishes that we do here, because we keep it very simple. It's sophisticated cookery, but it's also very simple.
This is something that everybody can do.
Absolutely.
And
not to be intimidated.
Absolutely, you know. Again, on a show like this, yeah, I think it would be wrong to do something which people cannot do at home. It's got to be an enjoyment, and anybody who is watching this should be able to say, I'm going to try this because this is easy. I can do that.
Well, this is what I hope that we do that.
Okay, now I'm going to put a little sage, which is sage is a very, very good herb to use with lamb. And again, because it is quite powerful. You wouldn't use sage with fish, for instance.
No, it's
because
very
it's strong.
Yes.
But with lamb, it seems to work very beautiful.
Oh, it's this. And this, is this from your garden?
This is from my garden.
At your farm, right?
This is from my garden, absolutely.
I saw some sage growing there.
Oh, yes, yes. I have sage and thyme and tarragon, and so, you know, any day, I mean, if you like to use tarragon is quite strong too. You could use that. Even parsley will do good to lamb, and everybody seems to have parsley these days.
Everyone seems to have parsley, although I'm a little tired of seeing it.
Well, you know, they shouldn't be on every plate, that's true. Yeah. This is fennel, as I mentioned before, and fennel is quite a hearty vegetable and needs quite some cooking, so I'm going to put this in right at the beginning. Now, the thing I need is some beautiful red wine from BC that matches this lamb here.
The wine, actually, that I have tonight Occasionally, I highlight a wine not from BC. I'll highlight a wine from our neighbors in Oregon or Washington.
I see.
And this is a beautiful wine made by David Lake, who is one of the finest wine masters on the continent in North America. This is a Merlot grown and vinted in Washington by Columbia Winery, which happens to be the oldest winery in that state.
Merlot will be excellent with lamb.
Yes, excellent with lamb. That's why I chose this. And David is an incredible winemaker. And well, let's try some of this wine. Now, did you want me to put some of this
First
in
of
here?
all, let me put a little tomato paste here.
Okay.
Just regular tomato paste. And because we want the sauce slightly tomatoey.
This is looking wonderful. I think it's such a shame that our friends can't smell what the food.
Oh well, you know they're gonna go to the store. They're gonna buy some lamb.
Extraordinary.
And they're gonna do what we're doing here.
Absolutely.
The whole
gonna
house
do it
smells. Right. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get them hungry, aren't we? Okay, maybe if you put me a little wine in here now.
Just tell me what.
Be a little more generous. I know it may be a terrific year.
Well, you know what I say.
That's it.
Always cook with the best ingredients, and that includes wine as well. There's nothing wrong with cooking with good wine. You should only cook with wine that you would drink. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Naturally, you do not take a 1945 Chateau Pontet Canet and cook with it, but
no.
You make sure you
that goes
eat something
saying.
with it that matches the wine. Now here I have some lamb stock, which is from the bones, which I cooked first. We're going to put these in here.
Gorgeous. It's gorgeous looking stock.
Now if you don't have any lamb stock, I think you can put a little more wine, a little bit water, and you then will depend a little more on the juice that comes out of the meat, but the flavor will still be terrific. Yeah. But naturally, I had the bone, so I made a little stock. Now, normally what we should do is to take this here, and we put this in the bowl. Now, this is for about 6 people. Now, just as it is here, now I didn't season anything because my sauce was already seasoned.
Right. Should I turn this fire off, or do you want it?
Actually, I want it a little more, so let's turn it on low. I guess the one in the back, that's this one here. This one we turn off.
Got it.
Okay, now this really should go in the oven.
Okay.
Just like this.
Here we go. Terrific.
Now I want to use the same pan here.
Sorry, dishwasher.
To cook the potatoes. Let's put a little more heat on here. Put the carrots. I have some mushroom heads, some butternut squash. And I also brought some pearl onions, but those we put at the end, otherwise they're going to be overdone.
I see. So we just braise this and let it simmer?
Yeah, we let it simmer. We put the cover on it without making too much noise. And let me taste a little of that.
You bet. Here you go.
Just to make sure it matches the lamb, you know.
I think, well, actually, this is, I've had the 1987, but this is the 1988, and I want to say that a mutual friend of ours, who is the distributor for this wine, went to the winery in Washington to get this for us.
Pick this up.
Yeah.
Just that trip alone makes it worth me drinking it.
And his name is, we should mention his name.
Bertie Montes.
Bertie Montes.
Yeah. He's a member of the Commanderie de Bordeaux, and I have many occasions sitting next to him tasting some beautiful wine. So
incredible nose on this wine. Oh, cheers.
But particularly in Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir, these are good wines to go together with lamb. Yeah.
You want a wine that can stand up to the to all the heady flavors.
Heavy on tannin.
This is, yeah, it's
which is, means this can live for another 10 years at least.
Absolutely, and continue to develop and get better and better. But the fruit in this is extraordinary.
Actually, this is good enough today to eat with lamb.
Yeah,
I mean,
think so.
It's mellow enough. Even though at the beginning you think it has a lot of tannin, but after you take one sip, it mellows down, and you could really drink this instantly and have a great enjoyment. Yeah.
And have great enjoyment. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So these are sweating away.
Yeah, I should put a
little liquid or butter in there.
Yeah, I should put a little butter in. So what we actually do, we do this on the side. Now the stew, this stew really needs about an hour cooking. So you have these ready, but you don't have to finish it until about 20 minutes or 15 minutes before you're ready to eat. Then you put them in here, you saute them. When they're almost cooked, you take out the lamb, which we should do now because we had one in here before.
Got that? Oh, there we go.
There we go. Now that's the way it will look when you get it out, and then you add the vegetables.
Oh, magnificent.
Actually, I need a little water.
That's hot.
Just put a little water, because what we want to do, we want to steam this.
Sure.
We don't want to roast it, not in any way.
I love cooking with copper because it retains the heat.
It retains the heat.
But also it doesn't stay hot. I mean, it will get hot quickly, and it will also cool as using gas heat.
Even, I mean, in the old days, almost every kitchen had nothing but copper because of its transmission of heat. You know, it gets hot quite instantly.
It's instant heat.
Also, I think it's beautiful. It's every day you clean it. Not only are you looking after the food, but you also look after your pots.
Yeah,
pans.
absolutely. That's really important.
Maybe what we should do is we should make a little plate here. Maybe we can move this. Again, you know, I always like to make sure we have good colors.
Well, sure, that's all part of cooking, but the emphasis, the focus is always on the flavors, the textures, the combinations of foods, and then the look of the food. Just naturally is going to be probably terrific as well, but that's also important. But it shouldn't be the focus.
But I think looks must be the #1 item.
You think so?
Because #1, let's say, it must be the first item to be considered. Because if food doesn't look good, you don't really feel like eating it. But if it looks good, you say, wow, I like to eat that.
But if you use, you know, as always preach the virtues of using the very best ingredients, if you use terrific food and ingredients and raw materials, it's going to look probably...
If you know what you're doing and you're doing it with love and care, then I guess it will turn out well.
Absolutely.
Let me just put a little fresh sage on here, something like this. And I think that would be a beautiful meal to serve to anyone.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's just a lamb stew. It's not the lamb rack, or it's not a brine cut. It's just something very simple, but it's something that I think our forefathers, like our grandfathers and our grandfathers before them, that's what they used to enjoy, and I'm sure they wanted it to be as beautiful and tasty as what we do today.
As we mentioned before, when I was chatting with you at your farm, you're from
Originally from Switzerland, yes.
The food that you prepare in your restaurant, what would you call that? Would you say that it was a French influence?
It's French cuisine, but because I'm out in the country, and as you can imagine, my clientele varies from the very good gourmets, the people who know what they want, and then you have the ones who would love to have a roast chicken.
Sure.
So I make a roast chicken, but instead of just the roast chicken, I make it with the beautiful tarragon sauce, and give them a little something which they would not get anywhere else. And I feel that that's probably why I'm 10 years and I'm still there serving my customers.
But I think a lot of people have a misconception about food, about the word gourmet and about French cuisine. And it is roast chicken, but a roast chicken prepared properly. You know, it can be an incredible meal. That's one of my favorite favorite things is a properly prepared roast chicken.
I get the phone calls every so often, and people would say, is your French cuisine very heavy?
Sure, a lot of cream and
it doesn't really have to be.
No.
I mean, we can cook a beautiful piece of fish in its own juice,
right,
with the little beautiful Riesling or whatever, and you don't have any fat. You know, French cuisine doesn't mean it has to be a lot of butter, a lot of fat, a lot of cream. It doesn't.
It just means, it means sophisticated but simple, clean, best ingredients.
Good looking.
Good looking, of course. Listen, we're going to continue to talk about the virtues of good looking food and the best ingredients and all that, and drink some of this marvelous Merlot.
Excellent, yes.
Bruno Marti, thanks for coming.
It was my pleasure, Gary, to be here
to our kitchen and sharing your expertise and talent. And you know, it's a thrill for me. I've followed your career for many years, and it's exciting to be able to work with you and have you as a guest.
Thanks for those comments.
Our guest tonight, Bruno Marti, owner, chef, Belle Auberge in Ladner, British Columbia. My name is Gary Faessler. Until we see you again,
goodbye.
Take care. Good luck.